subscriber. It's the Book of Chocolate, the amazing story of the world's favourite candy. Doesn't that look lovely? Could just eat some of that now. So what I thought we would do is take a look from here. So this is chapter 6, and it's called All in the Family. And at the side here there is an advert for Baker's chocolate, famous in 3 centuries, a perfect food. Housekeepers, when they order Baker's chocolate, should make sure that their grocer does not give them any of the imitations now on the market. Walter Baker & Co. Limited, Dorchester, Massachusetts. Gold medal, Paris 1900. At the start of the 20th century, sweet-to-eat chocolate was all the rage throughout Europe. Each country had its favourite type of chocolate, based largely on which company was the biggest chocolate seller in the nation, and each seller had achieved popularity thanks to the individual way in which they produced their chocolate. They all had secret recipes that ranged from the temperature at which nibs were roasted and how much sugar was added to the cocoa butter, to how long the chocolate was conched and how quickly it was cooled. None of these was the single right recipe. All of them were considered delicious. It was just that each country had its chocolate preferences. The Swiss liked it rich and milky, as did the British. Yep, definitely. The Italians liked it mixed with fruits and nuts. The Germans liked it dark and almost devoid of milk, often with hazelnuts. The Austrians blended it into pastries and filled it with flavoured cream. The Dutch liked it light. An enterprising young American named Milton Snavely Hershey saw the enormous popularity of milk chocolate in Europe. Here he is. Like other businessmen before him, he decided that milk chocolate was the future of his family business. But Hershey dreamed bigger than most people. He saw chocolate as the future of an entire city, created by him and built entirely on the business of manufacturing chocolate. Hershey was born in 1857 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. He wasn't there long, however. Hershey's father moved the family frequently, drifting from one job to another. This made settling down difficult, and Milton was unable to attend school on a regular basis. For long periods of time his father lived apart from the family while he was seeking work. Travelling from place to place in the mid-1800s, young Milton was exposed to many different kinds of candy and decided he wanted to be a candy maker. He apprenticed with a confectioner as a teenager, and at the age of 18 started his own caramel company in Philadelphia. At the time, caramels were one of the most popular types of candy. They were relatively easy to make, requiring little more than sugar, butter, vanilla, paraffin, a kind of edible wax, and a place to cook them at precise temperatures. Despite his best efforts, Hershey couldn't make a success of the caramel business. There was just too much competition from people starting their own candy shops. He tried opening stores in other cities, but they failed as well. When he ran out of money, he went to live with his father, who had become a miner in Colorado. While there, he worked for a Denver candy Hershey moved back to Pennsylvania. In 1886 he started the Lancaster Caramel Company. He made caramels as he'd learned out west, and this time his recipe was a huge success. A British company offered to sell them overseas, and Hershey's caramels became an international sensation. By the early 1890s, he was one of the biggest caramel manufacturers anywhere. In 1893, Hershey went to the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, a huge event that featured products, food, inventions and music from countries all over the world. He was looking for some new candy ideas and found them in a German company that was showing off its milk chocolate. Hershey fell in love with milk chocolate right then and there and was sure that it was the future of candy. He bought all the equipment that the German company had brought to the fair and sent it back to his factory in Pennsylvania. He was not, however, able to obtain the recipe for making milk chocolate. Initially, Hershey used the machines for simple chocolate products like cocoa powder for baking and the coatings for his company's caramels. It was a kind of chocolate not much different from what the Fries had come up with decades before. And it wasn't unique. Several American companies were already selling basic unsweetened chocolate. There was Baker's Chocolate, established in the late 1700s, the oldest cocoa company in the United States. There was also the Girard Deli Chocolate Company, one of the biggest businesses in the fast-growing state of California. The company was founded in 1852 by Domingo Girard Deli, who had learned chocolate making in his hometown of Rapallo, Italy. Like thousands of others, he had moved to California during the gold rush of '49, hoping to strike it rich. Girardelli didn't find any gold in California. Needing some type of income, he set up a small store. He sold equipment and food to other gold seekers, along with his own candy confections. By the time the gold rush had faded, Girardelli had established a thriving business in San Francisco, selling chocolate and coffee. In yet another path in the evolution of chocolate, one of Girardelli's employees accidentally discovered how to separate cocoa butter from cocoa mass without needing Van Houten's press. After hanging a bag of cocoa mass in a bag in a hot warehouse room, the employee later found that the temperature had caused the cocoa butter to seep out of the mass and drip through the bag, leaving just the cocoa solids, the cocoa cake, in the bag. Girardelli saw that this somehow removed even more of the cocoa's natural bitterness than Van Houten's process and didn't require the addition of alkali salts. Girardelli chocolate became a phenomenon throughout California. Here is an advert for Girardelli & Co. In addition to selling cocoa and cocoa powder, Girardelli began producing his own chocolate candies. His sons joined the company to help him expand. Their factory soon occupied a large section of San Francisco near Fisherman's Wharf, which came to be known as Girardelli Square. By 1893, when Hershey got into the chocolate business, the Girardelli family was already importing more than 500,000 pounds of cocoa beans a year. But Milton Hershey had two things going for him: manufacturing and distribution. He had a large caramel factory in which to make candy, Hershey's mind. This success was marvellous, but masked a big problem. He was producing chocolate, but he wasn't producing milk chocolate, the type of chocolate he steadfastly believed would change the chocolate industry. Hershey wasn't making milk chocolate for one simple reason: he didn't know how. Nobody in America did. The secret recipes for milk chocolate were locked away in the vaults of the companies that owned them in Europe. Recipes were what made one brand of milk chocolate taste different from another, and they were guarded as important corporate secrets. In addition, was foil wrapped by hand. Its milk chocolate richness and one pint size made it an immediate favourite across America. Even though the Hershey's bar was what drew buyers to Hershey's milk chocolate, the Hershey's Kiss became and remains one of the most recognisable candies ever created. Chocolate can be moulded into many forms, but nothing before or since has had as distinctive a shape as the Hershey's Kiss. With these three products, Milton Hershey introduced America to milk chocolate and made it cheap enough that everyone could afford it. Hershey's bars were just a nickel and stayed at that price until 1969. That year the price was doubled to a dime. Even school kids with a little bit of pocket money could buy a bar. Hershey was the first person to mass-produce chocolate on a scale that allowed him to ship chocolate every day to every part of the United States. Two things, both of his own creation, helped him with this. The first was the mixture he used to make his milk chocolate. Milk chocolate melts more quickly than basic, unsweetened or non-milk chocolate. Basic chocolate has a melting point of about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, but milk chocolate starts to get soft at temperatures around 75 degrees Fahrenheit and becomes almost liquid above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. You know this if you've ever carried a bar around in your pocket for more than a few minutes or held a piece in your hand. It becomes a fluid mess. This temperature problem explains why many large chocolate makers couldn't ship milk chocolate to other countries. It wouldn't last the journey in solid pieces or it would spoil. It also explains why so many milk chocolatiers were located in northern regions of the United States like Pennsylvania, New York, New England and Illinois, as well as in some of the coldest European countries like England, Switzerland and Germany. During hot summer months, many chocolate makers would have to stop production or risk having entire batches melt. This was before the invention of air conditioning. Something in Hershey's formula, which is still a close Chapter.